You know, there is a very specific type of arrogance that exists only in the corner offices of mid-level corporate management. It is the kind of arrogance that makes a man believe he owns the sun just because he bought a pair of sunglasses. And my former boss, Marcus, he was the emperor of that kind of delusion. Marcus was the CEO of a boutique high-end real estate brokerage. Let's call it Prestige Properties, because that sounds exactly like the kind of pretentious nonsense he would come up with. And for 5 years, I was his golden goose, his Rainmaker, the guy who brought in the clients that kept the lights on and paid for his leased Bentley. But Marcus made a fatal calculation error, a mistake so colossal that it didn't just cost him his best employee, it cost him his entire company. See, Marcus thought he was buying my time, he thought he was buying my labor, but he forgot that in this industry, in the world of high-stakes luxury real estate, you are not buying a salesman, you are buying a relationship, and relationships, my friends, are not transferable property, especially when you have a contract like mine. Let me take you back to the beginning so you can understand the architecture of this disaster. I joined Prestige when it was nothing, literally nothing. Marcus had an office, a phone, and a lot of debt. He hired me because I had a reputation. I was young, hungry, and I had a way with people. I could talk to a tech billionaire in a hoodie about zoning laws, and 10 minutes later I could talk to an old money matriarch about historical preservation credits. I was the chameleon, I was the closer, and because the company was so small back then, and because Marcus was so desperate to get me on board, I negotiated a very specific contract. Most people, when they get a job offer, they look at the salary, they look at the commission split, and they sign on the dotted line. Not me. I looked at the exclusivity and representation clause. I told Marcus, look, I am bringing my own book of business. I am going to build relationships that are personal to me. If I am the lead agent on a deal, I need to know that I have control. So we added a clause 17 subsection C, the keyman provision. It stated very clearly in legal language that was binding in all 50 states that for any client where I was listed as the lead agent, the representation agreement was contingent upon my continued employment at the brokerage. If I was terminated without cause or if I resigned for good reason, the client agreements were immediately voidable at the client's discretion, meaning if I left, the clients didn't have to stay. They weren't locked into a 12-month contract with Prestige Properties. They were free agents immediately. Marcus signed it without even reading it carefully, because back then he didn't think he would ever want to fire me, and he didn't think I would ever leave. He was just happy to have someone who could actually sell a house. Fast forward 5 years, the company is booming. We are the top brokerage in the city. We are handling listings for athletes, movie stars, tech moguls, and 80% of that revenue is coming from my desk. I am working 80-hour weeks. I am missing birthdays. I am missing holidays. I am living on caffeine and adrenaline, building this man's empire brick by brick. And Marcus is enjoying the fruits of my labor. He is taking 3-hour lunches. He is buying flashy cars. He is going on networking trips to Ibiza that are just excuses to party. He stopped being a boss and started being a parasite, but I didn't mind too much because I was making good money and I loved my clients. I had built real friendships with these people. I knew their kids' names. I knew their dogs' allergies. I was the first person they called when they wanted to buy and the first person they called when they wanted to sell. But greed is a funny thing. It is never satisfied. It always wants just a little bit more. And Marcus started looking at my commission checks with NVC. We had a 60-40 split in my favor, which is generous but fair considering I brought in the business. Marcus started thinking, why am I paying Julian 60%? The brand is established now. Prestige Properties is a household name. People come to us because of the sign out front, not because of Julian. That was his first mistake, thinking the brand was bigger than the person. The second mistake was thinking he could steal my whale client. Let's call him Mr. Sterling. Mr. Sterling was the biggest developer in the state. He was planning a massive luxury condo complex downtown, a project worth $300 million in sales. The commission on that alone would be enough to retire on. I had spent 2 years courting Mr. Sterling, 2 years of dinners, golf games, late-night strategy sessions, helping him with zoning issues, connecting him with architects. I had done the legwork, and we were weeks away from signing the exclusive listing agreement. It was going to be the biggest deal in the company's history. Marcus saw those dollar signs, and he lost his mind. He decided he didn't want to share that commission. He wanted it all for the house, meaning for himself. So he hatched a plan, a stupid, short-sighted, greedy plan. He figured if he fired me right before the deal was signed, he could assign the account to himself or one of his junior lackeys, keep the full commission, and claim that the deal belonged to the brokerage, not the agent. He thought he was playing for chess, but he was playing tic-tac-toe with a Sharpie he was about to eat. It happened on a Monday morning, classic ambush style. I walked into the office, coffee in hand, ready to finalize the Sterling proposal. Marcus called me into the conference room, the glass-walled one, so everyone could see. He had his HR lady there, a woman named Karen, who looked like she was permanently sucking on a lemon, and he had a security guard standing by the door, which was a nice touch, really added to the drama. Julian, have a seat, Marcus said, leaning back in his chair, trying to look authoritative, but mostly looking like a child wearing his dad's suit. What is going on, Marcus? I asked, setting my coffee down. We have the Sterling meeting at 2. I need to prep. You won't be attending the Sterling meeting, Marcus said with a smirk. In fact, you won't be attending any meetings here anymore. We are letting you go effective immediately. I stared at him for a second, waiting for the punchline. You are firing me? Why? I am the top producer in this company. I brought in 15 million in revenue last year alone. We are restructuring, Marcus said, using that favorite corporate buzzword. We feel that your style no longer aligns with the direction of Prestige Properties. We are moving towards a more team-based approach, and you are just too much of a lone wolf. Plus, we have found some irregularities in your expense reports. Irregularities? That was the best he could come up with. I expense client dinners that he approved personally. That is a lie, and you know it. I said, my voice calm but cold. You are firing me because you want the sterling commission. You want to cut me out before the ink is dry. Think what you want, Marcus said, shrugging. But the decision is final. You have 10 minutes to clear your desk. Security will escort you out. Oh, and Julian? Don't even think about contacting any of our clients. The non-solicitation agreement in your contract is ironclad. Those clients belong to Prestige Properties, not you. If you call them, email them, or even wave at them on the street, I will sue you for everything you own. He looked so smug, so triumphant. He thought he had won. He thought he held all the cards. He thought I was just another employee he could discard like a used wrapper. He had absolutely no memory of Clause 17 subsection C, the clause we negotiated 5 years ago when he was desperate, the clause that was about to turn his life into a living hell. I stood up slowly. I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. I didn't beg. I just smiled, a small dangerous smile, and said, okay, Marcus, if that is how you want to play it, good luck with the sterling deal. I hope you read the fine print. I wrote the fine print, he scoffed. Get out. I walked to my desk under the watchful eye of the security guard. I packed my personal items, my photos, my awards, the lucky pen Mr. Sterling had given me. I didn't take a single file. I didn't copy a single document. I didn't need to because the information wasn't in the files. It was in my head. And more importantly, the leverage wasn't in the contact list. It was in the contract. I walked out of the building into the bright sunshine and I felt free. Literally, the weight of carrying that man's ego for 5 years just lifted off my shoulders. I got in my car, drove home, poured myself a glass of iced tea, and waited. I didn't call a single client. I didn't violate the non-solicitation agreement. I sat on my couch and watched Netflix. I watched The Office, specifically the episode where Michael Scott starts his own paper company, because the irony was delicious. About 4 hours later, my phone rang. It was Mr. Sterling. Julian, he boomed in his deep, gravelly voice. I am at your office for our 2 o'clock meeting, and Marcus tells me you are no longer with the company. Is this true? It is true, Mr. Sterling, I said, keeping my voice professional. I was terminated this morning, effective immediately. Terminated? Sterling sounded confused. For what? Did you kill someone? No, sir, just restructuring. Apparently my style didn't align with the company's new direction. Restructuring my ass, Sterling grumbled. He fired you to cut you out of my deal, didn't he? I wasn't born yesterday, Julian. I know a power grab when I see one. Well, let me tell you something. I don't do business with Marcus. I do business with you. Where are you going? Which brokerage are you moving to? I am technically unemployed at the moment, sir, I said, and I have a non-solicitation agreement, so I cannot ask you to follow me. Screw his non-solicitation, Sterling barked. I am the client. I can go wherever the hell I want. And I looked at our representation agreement, Julian, the one we signed 6 months ago for the preliminary work. There is a clause here. Clause 17C says this contract is voidable if the lead agent is terminated. Did you put that in there? I may have insisted on that standard protection clause. Yes, sir. You sly dog, Sterling laughed. I love it. Okay, so here is what is going to happen. I am walking into Marcus's office right now, and I am going to fire him. I am voiding the contract effective immediately, and then I am going to hire you wherever you land, so you better land somewhere fast. I appreciate that, Mr. Sterling. Don't appreciate it, just get ready. I'll call you in 10 minutes. I hung up and smiled. 10 minutes later, my phone rang again, but it wasn't Sterling, it was Marcus. What did you do? He screamed into the phone, his voice cracking. What did you tell him? I didn't tell him anything, Marcus, I said, calm as a cucumber. He called me. He asked if I was fired. I told him the truth. He just walked out. Marcus shrieked. He voided the contract. He said he is pulling the entire development project. That is a $300 million deal, Julian. You are sabotaging me. I will sue you. I am not sabotaging you, Marcus, I said. I am sitting on my couch watching TV. I haven't solicited anyone, Mr. Sterling exercised his right under Clause 17 subsection C of our representation agreement. You know, the one that says the contract is void if the lead agent is terminated? You read the contract, right, Marcus? You said you wrote the fine print. There was a silence on the other end, a long, heavy silence, as the realization hit him like a freight train. He had completely forgotten that clause because he was so focused on the money, he forgot the mechanics of how he got the money. You set me up, he whispered. No, Marcus, I said. You set yourself up, you got greedy, you tried to steal from the person who built your table, and now the table is collapsing. Good luck fixing it. I hung up and blocked his number, but the storm was just starting. See, Mr. Sterling wasn't just a client, he was an influencer in the real estate world. People watched what he did, people followed his lead. Within 24 hours, word got out that Sterling had dumped Prestige Properties because they fired their top talent and because their contracts had a massive escape hatch. My phone started ringing off the hook, not from Marcus, but from my other clients, the tech billionaire, the movie star, the old money matriarch. They all had the same clause in their contracts because I used the same template for everyone. Julian, did you get fired? Is it true? Yes, it is true. Okay, well, I am looking at my contract and it says I can leave if you leave, so I am leaving. Where are we going? It was a domino effect, a glorious cascading collapse of Marcus's empire. Within 1 week, Prestige Properties lost 80% of its active listings. 80%, let that sink in. Imagine a grocery store losing 80% of its inventory overnight. Imagine a bank losing 80% of its deposits. That is what happened. Marcus went from being the king of real estate to being the king of an empty castle. He tried to sue me, of course he did. He filed a massive lawsuit claiming breach of contract, theft of trade secrets, tortious interference, all the scary legal words. His lawyer, a guy who looked like he chased ambulances for fun, sent me a cease and desist letter demanding I stop stealing his clients. I hired my own lawyer, a shark named Jessica, who took one look at my original employment contract and started laughing. This keyman clause? She said, this is bulletproof. He agreed to this. He signed it. He literally gave the clients permission to leave if he fired you. This is the stupidest thing a CEO has ever done. We went to arbitration because the contract required it. We sat in a conference room, Marcus looking pale and sweaty, his lawyer looking annoyed, me looking like I just won the lottery because essentially I had. Mr. Marcus alleges that Julian solicited these clients in violation of the non-compete, the arbitrator said. I didn't solicit anyone, I said. Here are the phone logs. Every single client called me first. Here are the emails where they explicitly state they are exercising their right to void the contract under Clause 17C. Here are the affidavits for Mr. Sterling and 5 other major clients stating that they left of their own volition because they lost faith in Prestige Properties after my termination. Jessica slid the stack of papers across the table. Marcus's lawyer picked them up, read through them, whispered something to Marcus that looked like, "We are screwed," and then looked back at the arbitrator. However, Marcus's lawyer tried. The spirit of the non-compete. The letter of the contract governs. The arbitrator interrupted. The clause is clear. Mr. Marcus terminated the lead agent, thereby triggering the voidability clause. The clients exercised their right. The respondent did not violate the non-solicitation agreement because the clients approached him. Case dismissed. Marcus slumped in his chair. He looked like a deflated balloon. He had lost the clients, he had lost the lawsuit, and he was bleeding money keeping the lights on in an office that had no revenue coming in. But I wasn't done yet. See, I didn't just want to win, I wanted to build. So I started my own brokerage, Rivera and Associates. Simple, clean, professional. And guess who my first clients were? Mr. Sterling, the tech billionaire, the movie star. Everyone came over not because I begged them, but because they trusted me. They knew I was the one doing the work. Mr. Sterling's development project? We launched it 3 months later. It sold out in record time. The commission from that one deal was enough to fund my new company for 5 years. I hired a team of agents, young, hungry agents like I used to be, and I gave them contracts that were fair. I gave them good splits, and I treated them with respect because I knew what it felt like to be treated like a disposable asset. Meanwhile, Prestige Properties was in a death spiral. Marcus tried to rebrand. He tried to hire new agents, but the reputation damage was done. Word gets around in this industry. Agents knew that Marcus would screw them over given the chance. Clients knew that the brokerage was unstable. Nobody wanted to list with them. 6 months after he fired me, Marcus filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. He lost the fancy office, he lost the leased Bentley, he lost the emperor status he loved so much. I heard from a mutual acquaintance that he is working as a junior agent at a discount brokerage, now showing rental apartments to college kids for a flat fee. Talk about a fall from grace. I ran into him once about a year later at a coffee shop. I was grabbing a latte before a closing. He was sitting in the corner looking at listings on a cracked laptop. He looked older, tired. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a bitter resignation. He saw me, and for a second I thought he was going to yell or make a scene, but he just looked down at his coffee and pretended he didn't see me. I almost felt sorry for him, but then I remembered the security guard escorting me out. I remembered him trying to steal the Sterling deal. I remembered him calling my work irregular to justify his greed, and the sympathy evaporated. He earned this, every single bit of it. You know, people think contracts are boring. They think reading the fine print is a waste of time, but let me tell you something. The fine print is where the power lives. Marcus thought he had the power because he had the title CEO. But I had the power because I had the Clause 17C. Never underestimate the person who actually reads the paperwork, and never ever bite the hand that feeds you, especially if that hand is holding the pen that signed your biggest clients. My brokerage is thriving now. We just opened a second office. I have a rule for all my managers. If an agent is bringing in the money, you treat them like gold. You don't get jealous. You don't get greedy. You thank them and you pay them. It is a simple philosophy, but it works because business isn't just about transactions. It is about people. And if you forget the people, you lose the business. It is really that simple. And as for Mr. Sterling? He is still my biggest client. We play golf every other Sunday. Last time we were on the course, he stopped at the 9th hole, looked at me and said, "You know, Julian, firing you was the best business decision Marcus ever made. For us." We laughed and hit the ball down the fairway straight and true, just like the contracts I write these days. But let's dig a little deeper into the chaos of those first few weeks, because honestly it was like watching a slow-motion car crash that I was safely observing from a helicopter. The panic inside Prestige Properties was legendary. My former assistant Sarah, who was the only person Marcus didn't fire because he needed someone to figure out my filing system, became my mole. She would text me updates daily. Day 2. Marcus is screaming at the IT guy because he can't find the Sterling files. He doesn't realize the files are just notes in your head. Day 3. 3 more clients called to cancel. Marcus threw a stapler at the wall. Day 4. He's calling your clients himself, trying to threaten them with legal action. Mr. Sterling told him to go pound sand and hung up. It was glorious. Sarah eventually quit too. About 2 weeks in, she walked out right in the middle of one of Marcus's tantrums. She works for me now. She runs operations at Rivera and Associates, and she makes double what Marcus paid her. Loyalty pays off, but only when it is given to the right people. One of the funniest moments was when Marcus tried to replace me. He hired this guy, let's call him Brad. Brad was a stereotypical sales shark: slick hair, cheap cologne, aggressive handshake. Marcus thought Brad could just step in and take over my relationships. Brad called the tech billionaire, let's call him Elon, not that Elon but close enough, and tried to hard sell him on staying with Prestige. According to Elon, Brad said, "Listen, buddy, you have a contract and we are going to hold you to it, so let's cut the crap and talk strategy." Elon, who is worth about $4 billion and hates being told what to do, simply said, "I have a lawyer who costs more per hour than you make in a year. Talk to him," and hung up. Then he called me and said, "Julian, get me out of there. This guy is a clown." It validated everything I knew about the industry. You can't commoditize relationships. Marcus thought clients were just revenue streams plugged into a wall. He didn't realize they were people who needed to trust the person guiding them through the biggest financial decisions of their lives. When he broke that trust by firing me, he severed the connection. And the legal aspect, let's talk about how satisfying that arbitration really was. Marcus's lawyer tried to argue that the key man clause was intended for death or disability, not termination. He tried to say, surely the company wouldn't agree to a clause that lets clients leave just because an employee is fired. That would be business suicide. My lawyer Jessica leaned forward and said, "It is business suicide, which is why you shouldn't have signed it, but you did, and the text is unambiguous. Terminated for any reason implies any reason, including the CEO's greed." The look on Marcus's face when he realized his own laziness in reading the contract caused his downfall was priceless. He had signed his own death warrant 5 years ago and handed the executioner the axe. I learned a lot from Marcus. I learned exactly how not to run a business. I learned that fear and intimidation work for a little while, but loyalty and respect work forever. I learned that you should never build your castle on a foundation of someone else's work unless you are willing to give them a key to the gate. Now when I hire young agents, I tell them this story. I tell them, build your book, build your relationships, and protect yourself. Read your contracts, know your worth, and if you ever work for a boss who tries to steal your thunder, make sure you have a lightning rod in your pocket. Rivera and Associates isn't just a brokerage, it is a statement. It is a monument to the idea that talent wins over tyranny eventually. Sometimes it takes a while, sometimes you have to get fired first, sometimes you have to walk out with a box of your belongings while security watches, but if you have the skills and you have the relationships, you will land on your feet. I remember driving past the old Prestige office a few months ago. The sign was gone, the windows were papered over, space for lease. It said, seeing that empty shell gave me a sense of closure. I didn't hate Marcus anymore, I just pitied him. He had everything and he threw it away because he couldn't stand sharing the spotlight. Greed is a blinder. It makes you focus so hard on the gold coin in front of you that you don't see the cliff you are stepping off of. Marcus stepped off that cliff and I learned to fly. So to anyone out there stuck in a job where you are undervalued, where your boss takes credit for your work, where you feel like a cog in a machine, remember my story. Check your contract, find your leverage, build your relationships, because one day that machine might try to crush you and you need to be ready to strip the gears and walk away with the engine. Mr. Sterling sent me a gift for the 1-year anniversary of Rivera and Associates, a bottle of scotch that costs more than my first car and a note that said, to the keyman, thanks for unlocking the door. I poured a glass, sat on my balcony, looked out over the city skyline where the Sterling condos were rising, steel and glass glittering in the sunset, and I took a sip. It tasted like victory, it tasted like freedom, and it tasted like 17C. Cheers to the fine print. You know, the absolute cherry on top was dealing with the other agents at Prestige when the ship started sinking. See, I wasn't the only one bringing in money, I was just the biggest one. There were about 10 other agents. They're decent people, mostly just trying to make a living. When I got fired and the clients started fleeing, Marcus went into panic mode. He started squeezing the other agents, cutting their commission splits, demanding they work weekends, trying to make up for the lost revenue from my departure. One by one, they started calling me, Julian, get us out of here. He is losing it. He is docking our pay for office supplies. He is tracking our bathroom breaks. It is a nightmare. I didn't want to poach them. Initially I wanted to start fresh, but then I thought, why not? These were good agents, they knew the market, they were trained, and they were being abused, so I opened the doors. If you want to come over, the split is 70-30 in your favor, and I cover marketing costs. They came in a stampede. Within a month I had absorbed almost the entire sales force of Prestige Properties. Marcus was left with an empty office, a few interns, and Brad the aggressive shark who couldn't sell water in a desert. It was a total transfer of power, not through hostile takeover, but through migration. The talent migrated to where it was treated well. It proved a theory I always had: companies don't own talent, companies rent talent, and if the rent involves disrespect, the tenant moves out. Marcus tried one last Hail Mary. He tried to spread rumors about me in the industry. He told people I was embezzling. He told people I was unethical. He told people I stole his database. It was sad, really, because everyone knew the truth. Everyone saw the lawsuits get dismissed. Everyone saw the clients follow me publicly. Real estate is a small world. Word travels fast, and the word was that Marcus was a sinking ship flailing in the water. I sent him a cease and desist letter finally, just to shut him up. Dear Marcus, continue spreading falsehoods, and I will sue you for defamation per se, and I will use the discovery process to make all your financial records public, including the irregularities you accused me of, which we both know were actually your personal expenses billed to the company. He shut up real fast. Turns out he had been using company funds to pay for his divorce lawyer and his girlfriend's apartment. If that came out in court during a defamation suit, he would be facing fraud charges on top of bankruptcy. Silence is golden, especially when you are guilty. So here I am, CEO of my own firm, respected, wealthy, and free. I work hard still, but I work for myself. I answer to my clients, not a man-child in a corner office, and every time I sign a new contract, I make sure to highlight the clauses. I make sure everyone understands the terms. Transparency, it turns out, is a much better business model than treachery. If you are ever in a negotiation, remember Clause 17C. Remember that you have more power than you think, especially if you are the one doing the actual work. The Rainmakers hold the cards, the bosses just hold the umbrellas. Don't let them convince you otherwise. And to Marcus, if you are listening, thanks for firing me. It was the push I needed to realize I didn't need you. I was the business. You were just the overhead. Getting rid of the overhead was the most profitable thing I ever did. Have fun with the rental apartments, buddy. I hear the market is tough this time of year.